Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jeff Rothstein. It's my great pleasure to welcome all of you to the installation ceremony of Dr. Justin MacArthur as the inaugural holder of the John W. Griffin Professorship in Neurology. This afternoon, we're going to recognize and celebrate three different and very special individuals and families who have and will continue to make their indelible contribution and mark on neurology, patient care, and to Johns Hopkins. First, the late John Griffin, or Jack Griffin as most of us of course know him by, the past chairman of neurology, a world-renowned clinician scientist, and a mentor to many, many of us. Justin MacArthur, a mentee of Jack's, who himself is a shining model of leadership and a superb clinician scientist. And the Legum family, who have consistently shown their great dedication to neurology research and education, and as benefactors and philanthropic supporters of Johns Hopkins and the Department of Neurology. Now, this evening is very special to me personally because I knew Jack as both a friend and mentor, and many of you in this audience as well have. He was an exceptional physician, a teacher, a colleague. It was a great loss when he passed away a few years ago, and he left a void in our hearts and minds. But he left a legacy in medicine and in neurology, and through many people who trained under him and who worked with him. Justin is a premier, if not the best example of that legacy. Now, this evening is also very special to me because I've known Justin for 30 years. It's a long time. In fact, he was my very first attending physician when I came here as a resident. In fact, he was just a first-year attending, and his daughter Heather was merely a little baby in a crib. Back then, of course, we were both younger than we are now. We were a little lighter in weight and had the capacity to stay up all night. Now, Johns Hopkins is a place where many of us stay for a long time because we get to work alongside superb, the best physicians and scientists in the field, really, I believe, in the country and if not the world. We also get to know one another as members of the Johns Hopkins family. Justin has been an important, no, in fact, a vital member of our community for decades. And on behalf of all of the faculty in neurology, I extend our warm and deep congratulations to him. Now, not everyone who admires Justin and who could be here today, and one of them, Dr. Marty Samuels, chair of neurology of the Brigham and Harvard Medical School, sent along a gift from his personal library, a book by the late Richard Johnson, a former director of neurology, as many of you know, here at Hopkins. The book is Dick Johnson's seminal work called Viral Infections of the Nervous System, and this is actually the book that Marty left for us. And Marty asked us to read this dedication to Justin. March 31st, 2016, for Justin MacArthur, presented on the occasion of his installation as the John W. Griffin Professor, Johns Hopkins, from his friends, colleagues, and admirers at the Department of Neurology, Brigham and Women's Hospital, Harvard Medical School, Boston. Justin. Now, there's an additional unannounced gift for Justin as well. As Justin trained under Jack, and not all of you will know, but Jack was really the premier neuromuscular physician. In fact, the neuromuscular division, I have to say this, is the best division anywhere in the world, not just at Hopkins. And Jack was known for his very large reflex hammer. And we felt, as part of his inauguration, that Justin deserved really Jack's reflex hammer. But there's a caveat. Justin didn't train in neuromuscular. So we guarantee that we will give this to you when you finish your fellowship in neuromuscular disease. Holding a named endowed professorship is really a mark of distinction in a faculty's member career. It signals a great achievement. It also helps us ensure the lasting legacy of the person in whom the professorship is named. It is wonderful to think that this professorship, named after Jack, will continue in perpetuity. And of course, endowed professorships like this one cannot happen without the commitment of philanthropists. We, all of us here this evening, this afternoon, all of us in the Department of Neurology are grateful to the Legums, Harriet and Jeffrey Legum, for honoring Jack and for their extraordinary commitment to neurology, Johns Hopkins and the School of Medicine. Without further ado, it is now my privilege to welcome in our first speaker of this evening, the Dean and CEO of Johns Hopkins Medicine, Dr. Paul Rothman.
Thank you, Jeff. Good afternoon. It's really wonderful to be here today to celebrate both Justin MacArthur and the Legums. So I'm so happy to be here, and both of these people are very special to me. So I'm gonna first think about the Legums. You know, Johns Hopkins gave his gift to found this institution in 1876, and since that gift, we have really relied on people who believe in this institution and believe that we can make a difference. And those people often help us through their philanthropy to impact society. And in that realm, the Legums not only are giving us this gift, but are giving so much of themselves to us. You know, when we came, this is my fourth year here, and I will say Harriet and Jeff were some of the first people who befriended my wife Frances and myself, taking us out to dinner and showing us a little bit of Baltimore. And they both give not only of some of their resources, but their most important resource, which is their time. Harriet really helps us with the woman's journey, and it's really been a champion of that forever. So I get to see her quite often, and that has become such an important part of what Johns Hopkins is. And Jeff is a very vocal member of our Board of Trustees. You can always count on Jeff to tell us what he thinks and really provide important insights. And when you think about them, not only do they really give tons of their time, but someone gave me a list of the different parts of Johns Hopkins that they support. So I'm going to read it off. They support the Johns Hopkins Berman Institute of Bioethics, the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, the Johns Hopkins Children's Center, the Fund for Johns Hopkins Medicine, the Heart and Vascular Institute, Johns Hopkins Department of Athletics, Johns Hopkins Hospital and Health System, the Sidney Kimmel Comprehensive Cancer Center, the Johns Hopkins University Krieger School of Arts and Sciences, the Peabody Institute, the School of Medicine, Sheridan Libraries, the Widener School of Engineering, Wilmer I Institute, A Woman's Journey, and the Departments of Medicine, Surgery, Neurology, Nursing, Pathology, and Psychiatry. Isn't that? You are really amazing friends of this institution. I want to thank you for your generosity in many realms, but today for this generous gift to help us with the John W. Griffin Professorship. So thank you both. And then we get to the person who's getting the chair, Justin MacArthur, and I'm not going to steal Henry Brem's thunder and tell you all about him. And you know, today's world, for those of you who aren't physicians, there is a special type of physician that this institution was built on, again, starting 127 years ago, and we call that the triple threat. It's the physician that both excels in teaching, education, and clinical care. And there is no one better at this institution at all three missions than Justin MacArthur. So he is a preeminent scientist. His work has involved studying the neurologic effects of HIV. His impact in that field is truly amazing. I looked up his recent numbers. I looked at them about a year ago, but his H factor, for those who don't know, that's an index of how often his articles are cited, is 89. I know a lot of Nobel laureates that are in the 60s or 70s. So that's just one measure of the impact his work has had. His work has been cited 26,000 times. He has 80 papers that have been cited at least 100 times. That's just one indication of Justin's impact and the work in his field. So that's that. He is the consummate clinician. And I know that because I rounded with him. And I'll talk about clinical and education at the same time. So, you know, today many physicians, the clinical care is sitting in front of a computer and looking at numbers. But Justin is, and maybe it's his training, but he's really one of those clinicians that still knows how to talk with patients and how to do a physical exam. And I saw him examine a patient, and he did tests that, I mean, I've been in this business 35 years, Justin, and you did neurologic tests that I had never seen performed before, and taught the resident to do it. It was an MD PhD student who was on the team, and I sat there amazed. And Justin, you are in the best tradition of William Osler, who said the good physician treats the disease and the great physician treats the patient who has the disease. And there's no one here who's better at that than you, Justin. It is an honor to have you on the faculty, and I'm so happy that you're getting this professorship today, so congratulations. Now, as I always say, I'd ask President Ron Danos to come up. So for those who don't know, the endowment professorship is actually held by the university and the trustees, and so I'm going to formally present the professorship. So as the Dean of Medical Faculty, I formally present to you, the President of Johns Hopkins University, the John W. Griffin Professorship in Neurology.
Well, thank you, Paul and Jeff, for those wonderful words. It's truly wonderful to be here with you today and to celebrate this moment with so many university leaders and members of our community, particularly Diane Griffin, Jack's wife and our colleague, as well as so many members of the Griffin, MacArthur, and Legum families. And without any further ado, on behalf of the Johns Hopkins University, this makes it all official. It is my pleasure and my privilege to accept the John W. Griffin Professorship in Neurology. Now, as many of you may know, our inaugural professor was mentored by the professor's namesake, Jack Griffin. And I could point to any number of obvious ways that Jack, world-renowned neurologist, prolific researcher, exceptional academic leader, and beloved colleague and friend, rubbed off on his mentee. Just look at the pages of academic articles, the impact that Paul Rothman discussed a moment ago, the phalanx of grateful patients and families, the cadre of successful colleagues and students. But I became aware of Jack's influence on Justin in rather more unusual circumstances. It was during a climb to the top of the Hopkins Dome. Now, it was early afternoon when Justin met me, my family, and another of our colleagues for this most excellent adventure. And after greeting us in his typically warm and gregarious manner, Justin and our intrepid group began the ascent. Up we climbed on cement stairs, which then gave way to some wooden stairs, and in my memory to a wooden platform from which we paused to look down straight into the abyss of many stories below. And as we scaled these vertigo-inducing heights, Justin, of course, was fearless, undeterred by the climb, and delighted by the prospect of the view ahead. He regaled us with a near constant stream of Hopkins history, and yet somehow also noticed that the aforementioned colleague who was with us had grown increasingly green around the gills. She had neglected to mention the small fact of her serious fear of heights. In fact, this colleague is my speechwriter. What amazed me was how effortlessly Justin kept all of us focused on our goal while subtly retreating to the back of the line of climbers. There he, with Jack Griffin-like humor, kindness and compassion, cajoled and coached our entire group, and through what can only be described as an exhilarating experience. In that moment, I saw the essence of a consummate leader, scientist, clinician, educator, and colleague, someone fearless in pursuit of an ambitious goal, someone with a great interest in helping others achieve that goal as he was in reaching it himself. In short, someone a lot like Jack. This combination of fearlessness and empathy has propelled Justin through his 3 decades at Johns Hopkins, from his early work to understand HIV-related dementia to his refusal to accept a little cognitive impairment as the price of living longer with the virus. He has trained his sights on improving the lives of his patients and the thousands of AIDS sufferers he would never meet. In his leadership, he has built on the foundation laid by Jack to turn Hopkins' neurology department into one of the largest and most highly ranked in the nation. And he has maintained a steadfast, unwavering commitment to educating the next generation, whether by bolstering the careers of Hopkins medical students or opening pathways to science for city high school students through his internship program in neurology. An astute judge of character, one can imagine it did not take many visits with either Jack or Justin for Jeff Legum to see these wonderful traits. And of course, we know they are traits mirrored in the life and work of Jeff and Harriet. Fearlessness and vision were evident when a 16-year-old Jeff parlayed success as a door-to-door salesman into an offer for a 25% stake in the business, only to refuse said offer with remarkable chutzpah for a teenager and stake his future instead on a degree from the Wharton School. It was this same spirit with which he transformed the family auto business into one of the most successful in the nation, recognizing opportunities to grow and cultivating the talent to realize them. In Harriet, this fearless spirit manifests in her determination to make sure that her experience in beating cancer yields benefits for others. One has only to look at her landmark Women's Journey Health Conference to understand her impact on thousands of women who have attended in the decades since it was launched. And of course, the vision and determination with which Harriet and Jeffrey pursue their lives' work is matched only by their desire to ensure that others can realize their aspirations. From the institutions across the city, emboldened and sustained by their benefaction, to the scientists and scholars empowered to pursue research that have restored sight to millions, fought the scourge of cancer, and improved the health of women around the world. To Justin, congratulations on this great honor. We know that you will continue to discharge it with all the intelligence, humor, and humanity of its namesake. To Harriet and Jeffrey, thank you for all that you have done to support Justin and help our entire university, as Paul Rothman mentioned a moment ago, reach quite dizzying heights. Here's again to the excellent adventures that lie ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Daniels, for those just wonderful comments. It's now a privilege to invite Jeffrey Legum to the podium and to recall without Jeffrey and Harriet's generosity and commitment to Johns Hopkins to advancing medicine, we would not be here tonight. Mr. Legum.
I want to thank all our distinguished guests for coming here today. I knew Jack Griffin for over 20 years, not the 30 years that some of you knew him for. I was extremely fond of him. The first time I saw Dr. Griffin, I was a patient of his, and I noticed my paperwork on his desk, and I guess I was 48 or 49 years old. I saw he'd written my age as 65, and I knew I didn't look that great, but I didn't think I looked 16, 17 years older than I was. So I said, Jack, do I really look that bad? And he said, oh, no, you don't look bad at all. I just picked a random number and wrote it down. So today I'm 74 and I'd settle for 65, but not then. Jack had a wonderful sense of humor and great empathy, and I trusted him fully. I could always count on him to be direct, and I'm always direct, so that was good. And that gave me tremendous comfort, alleviating a lot of concern that can arise from the unknown. If you're diagnosed with something, you always think the worst. My faith in him, paired with his incredible intelligence, made him a wonderful doctor, and he was a great sounding board and friend. He was an extremely interesting person. Every time I met with him, we had a discussion about medicine. I was interested in what to invest in, so I would prod him a little bit on what was going on, and he would tell me. And the problem was that he'd forget he was talking to me, and he'd think he was talking to one of his medical students or a doctor. So I'd have to remind him occasionally that he was on a level way above me, and I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. So. Sometimes it feels like I saw Jack just last week. And in line with his sense of humor, he told me that the oncology department told him they didn't want him back, and that he was not to come back because they were tired of seeing him. Then he proceeded to tell me that he was going to have another round of oncology. When he passed away in 2011, I was deeply saddened, and I wanted to find a way to honor Jack. Jack touched the lives of so many people really deeply, and he touched my life. I told my wife, Harriet, that I was going to establish a chair in honor of Dr. Griffin, and I immediately called Justin MacArthur before I changed my mind, and said, no, Harriet said, why not name it after yourself? Why do you want to name it after Dr. Griffin? I'm just teasing. So I called Justin MacArthur, and I told him my plan, and I asked him, because Justin, to me, embodied everything that Jack stood for. So I said, Justin, would you please serve in the chair? And I don't remember his answer, but he's here tonight, so we accomplished what we wanted to. I'm happy to be here this afternoon to remember Jack. I'm grateful to have shared part of my journey with him. He gave me insights and expertise and a sense of peace. And he allowed me to see the future and see that things weren't as bad as I had imagined they might be. It gives me great pleasure to honor both Jack Griffin and Justin MacArthur with this chair. Thank you.
I want to thank those who've organized this wonderful event for giving me the opportunity to introduce my very good friend and colleague, Justin MacArthur. Perhaps except for Justin, his family, the Legums, who are the generous donors who created the John W. Griffin Professorship in Neurology, no one could be happier than I that Justin has received the honor of being named the first to hold the Griffin Chair. I work more closely with Justin than with any other department director, and I can't imagine anyone more qualified to be the first Griffin professor than Justin, in part because Jack perhaps was Justin's most influential mentor. Jack would have been so proud of this recognition for Justin, as we all are. He knew how brilliant Justin is, both as an internationally acclaimed scientist and a warm-hearted, compassionate clinician who cares deeply for all of his patients, from those who have AIDS, multiple sclerosis, and other neurologic infections and immune-mediated neurologic disorders, to the underprivileged and the homeless. His colleagues and his students who have given Justin this institution's highest awards for teaching also know how lucky they are to enjoy not only his abiding interest in them, but the splendidly sly humor which he spices in his conversations with all of us. Just as Jack was one of the most influential Hopkins mentors that Justin had, Jack was also one of my most influential mentors once I became head of the Department of Neurosurgery. When I became director of the Department of Neurosurgery, it was to Jack, who was my senior partner in neurology, that I turned for the invaluable guidance and advice that he so generously gave to me on how best to direct and to inspire my department. Jack was a multidimensional individual, compassionate, highly cerebral, an omnivorous reader, and a deep thinker. He also had a decidedly deliberative style of decision-making that required the accumulation and marshaling of as many facts as possible before concluding how to proceed. Fortunately for me, Jack often delegated the gathering of those details to Justin. So he and I have been collaborating, working together for years, long before he succeeded Jack as a director of neurology. It's always been a joy to work with Justin and foster one of the wonders of academic medicine in America, the close collaboration of neurosurgery and neurology at Johns Hopkins. This unique sense of unity between our two departments was first established in the 1960s by neurosurgeon Earl Walker and Guy McCann, who's here with us, the founding director of the neurology department. It was immeasurably enhanced by Don Long and Guy McCann, who had the wisdom to appoint a joint administrator for both departments and to unify them into a single functional unit. Jack and I, and now Justin and I, strive diligently to maintain that collaboration because it's not only advances science, it's also best for our patients also. As Justin has observed, he probably spends as much time, if not more time, with me each week than he does with his wife, Julie. We communicate frequently as well as see each other at various meetings a number of times daily. We also have established meetings several times a week. All I can say to Julie, his wife, is that I'm immensely grateful to you for loaning Justin to me so often. In fact, it's to Julie that I and all of Johns Hopkins owe the good fortune of having Justin here at all. Let me explain. Justin was born in Reigate, Surrey, in the United Kingdom, the son of an advertising man and a florist. As a teenager, he developed a deep interest in medicine when he watched his mother's closest friends suffer and die from ovarian cancer. He obtained his medical degree from Guy's Hospital at the University of London and first came to Johns Hopkins in 1979 as a participant in the Suburb Student Exchange Program that Hopkins and Guy's Hospital had since 1947. He had a splendid 2 months here. He worked closely with David Hellman, who's now the head of medicine at Johns Hopkins Bayview, and found that he far preferred the less hierarchical and more patient-centered way that we practice medicine in the United States than what he had known in Great Britain. He returned to the United Kingdom. He completed his medical education, but then he contacted Victor McCusick to ask for an internship here at Hopkins. Dr. McCusick arranged that, and Justin arrived here in October of 1980, and the rest is history. Initially, Justin was interested in cardiology, but Justin found himself drawn to the style of teaching exemplified in neurology by Guy McCann, Dick Johnson, Jack Griffin, and John Freeman. He had a fabulous time working with them, and he switched to their field. His plan was to return to England after a year or two at Hopkins, but as I noted, that's when he met Julie, a Johns Hopkins nurse. They've now been married for 34 years, and between the two of them, they have 60 years of Hopkins experience. 20 years ago, Justin became an American citizen. By doing so, he says that he lost his place as the 27,301st in line for the British throne, as well as any hope of being named to the Queen's honor list. Yet here he is today, the first John W. Griffin Professor in Neurology at the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, and I'd say that's more than a fair trade. Congratulations, Justin, and thank you.
Well, thank you to all of the speakers. Good afternoon, Jeffrey and Harriet, President Daniels, Dean Rothman, Mr. Peterson, and the Griffin family especially. When I arrived at Hopkins, as Henry said, in October 1980 as a medical intern, I would never have imagined that one day I might be standing here about to receive an endowed chair and surrounded by patients, friends, and family. It's particularly humbling and meaningful for me to receive the John W. Griffin Chair. As you've heard, Jack was first and foremost a very close friend, but also my mentor, collaborator, and department director. Some have described Jack in almost superhuman terms, a mentor's mentor, the consummate physician-scientist. When I think of Jack, which I do often, I think of him in terms of a wonderful, caring doctor. In his obituary, I wrote these words: "He's a superb neurological detective." The name of Jack Griffin's farm baseball team, yes, he did play, was the Optimists. It echoes Jack's essential nature, that of an empathic clinician, as well as a superb neurologist. With his patients, it was always, "You will recover." With his research, it was always, "This is going to work." There was a tremendous positive spirit that has been felt throughout his career, and it is my privilege to carry this legacy forward. Francis Peabody at Harvard Medical School wrote, "One of the essential qualities of the clinician is an interest in humanity, for the secret of the care of the patient is in caring for the patient." This sentiment applies to Jack better than anyone I know and typifies the high level of interest that Jack had in his patients and that I hope to live up to each day. So just as Jack loved his patients, he was also very committed to mentoring, and many of us benefited from his mentoring skills and his passion for success in others. Goethe's quote epitomizes Jack: "Who is the happiest of men? He who values the merits of others, and in their pleasure takes joy, even as though 'twere his own." Diane, Todd, and Eric, thank you for sharing Jack with me and all of those in this room and outside who he mentored over the years. And of course, this chair would not be possible without the generosity and vision of Jeffrey and Harriet Legum. You've heard of their story and their commitment to Hopkins. They've been true friends to Hopkins neurology and Hopkins physicians for many years. Jack helped provide care for several family members in his typical understated manner. I've had the privilege of getting to know both Jeffrey and Harriet as well as their children over the past decade. You've heard already that Jeffrey has a long connection to neurological science because he, in fact, started work at age 16 as a salesman for a headache remedy. Is that true? Harriet is, of course, equally well known within the Hopkins and Baltimore community as a powerful advocate for the breast cancer research and education. As chair of the Johns Hopkins Oncology Breast Cancer Research Chair and Fellowship Campaign, she raised funds to endow the first chair and fellowship of its type in the country. Harriet's developing interest in women's health issues helped spur the creation of a women's journey, now in its 20th year, and Julie is very proud to be a part of that program each year. The Legums are indeed true philanthropists in all senses of the word and have created a meaningful impact in our department and many others across Johns Hopkins. So finally, I'd like to reflect on the many people who have helped me along the way, either directly by working alongside me or through mentorship. First, the many patients who I've had the privilege to help care for over the years. A number of you are with us in the room today, and I thank you for your support, for your encouragement, and your friendship. It has been an honor to help care for you, and I've experienced the true personal joy from my passion for delivering clinical care that means that I get much more out of the experience than I put in. Second, my colleagues in neurology and across Hopkins in general. I've been fortunate to work with many outstanding people whose efforts have lifted me. I'm especially thankful for the constant advice and encouragement from Hopkins leadership, especially Dean Miller, Dean Rothman, Mr. Peterson, and of course Henry Brem, who is an almost daily companion as we work together in the neurosciences. I also rely on a daily basis on our superb residents, nurses, administrators, development team, and my own terrific office staff. Thank you for all that you do. My research team and many, many collaborators, both here at Hopkins and elsewhere, have been a true pleasure to work with over 30 years of research. It seems amazing, and have allowed us to make true progress in combating HIV/AIDS. So finally, this day would not have happened without the organizational skills of two people, Daniela Negrete and Victoria Moranto, in putting on this event, which is very meaningful both to myself and my family. I also want to thank our close friends, Jonathan and Susan Horn, who made time to be here today. And finally, I thank my UK family, as I call them, Sally and Tom, Marnie and Louie, who traveled here from London to be with us today. This means a lot to me and Julie, and it's especially appropriate, especially in this space, since Sally and Marnie are both artists, and John Singer Sargent, behind me, painted the four founding physicians, the four doctors portrait, as we call it, in his studio in London in 1905, not 5 miles from their house. Now, our mother is unable to be here today, but I'm certain would have enjoyed the day tremendously and would have attempted, of course, to choreograph all of the arrangements in her own inimitable way. My father would have been 100 years old this year, and I would have given anything for him to be here today. I owe much to him, a strong sense of duty and personal accountability, as well as a relatively calm approach to life's challenges. And last but not least, our daughter Heather, who never fails to amaze us with her architectural prowess, her smarts, and my wife Julie, who has given me such love and support over almost 34 years of marriage. To paraphrase Jean Le Carré, she has endured both my presence and my absences. So in closing, all I can say is that I have a deep sense of thanks, a a deep sense of humility, and I'm truly blessed. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Justin. That was wonderful. It really was. And I want to extend my congratulations from all of the faculty, all of our students, our residents, all the members of the Department of Neurology. This is a wonderful occasion for you and for recognition of Jack and to the Legums. This ends the event. I want to invite all of you to congratulate Justin. There's a reception next door, and we deeply thank you for attending.